Are you looking for an ultra-wide monitor for gaming? Luckily for you, Samsung released a 34-inch monitor as part of their Odyssey lineup. We recently bought and tested the Samsung Odyssey G5, the 34-inch variant, and today we'll discuss our findings with you, and then we'll move on to the inputs. Then we'll break down the results by each usage, such as gaming, HDR gaming, office use, and content creation. Afterwards, we'll finish with our verdict and compare it to other competing models on the market. Before getting into the nitty-gritty, let's look at the design. The 34-inch Samsung Odyssey G5 is essentially a larger version of the 27-inch model. It features the same design with a 1000R curved screen, which is pretty aggressive. It has an all-plastic black body with a gamer-friendly design. The stand has a V-shaped feet that look like most Samsung monitors. It feels cheap and attaches to the monitor with basic clips. The back of this monitor looks pretty basic. The 75 by 75 VESA holes are visible and the cutout in the back looks like there's something missing there. Also, the VESA holes aren't even centered with the entire screen. There's a small hook in the stand for cable management which helps keep your setup clean. Sadly, the ergonomics of the Odyssey G5 are terrible. You can only tilt the stand within a narrow range, and even at that, the hinge is tough to move. It's hard to place the screen in an ideal viewing position, but that's also somewhat expected for an ultra-wide monitor. Overall, the build quality is decent. It's made out of basic plastic that doesn't feel anything special and feels a bit cheap. It's well built together and there's nothing that's visibly wrong with it, but it still doesn't feel premium either. Look at the results soon, but let's look at the inputs first. It's pretty limited on inputs. There are DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.0 inputs. You also get an audio output so you can connect speakers or your headphones to it. There's a USB port that you can use for servicing. But other than that, there really isn't much. The screen itself is big and offers a ton of space so that you can open multiple windows next to each other. It has a 21:9 aspect ratio, which is what sets it apart from the 27 and 32-inch models because those have a 16:9 aspect ratio. This monitor has a 3440 by 1440 resolution, which results in a pixel density of 108 pixels per inch. Finally, let's look at the additional features, but there aren't many. You get a picture-by-picture mode, so you can display images from two sources at once, side by side. There's also an eye saver mode that reduces the amount of blue light, and you can add a virtual crosshair on the screen for FPS games. Now we'll move on to the testing results, but we're going to sort them by usages. One of the most important parts of gaming is refresh rate. This is how many times per second the screen refreshes itself and displays a new image. This is important for motion handling. While the 27-inch model of the Odyssey G5 has 144 Hz refresh rate, the 34-inch one can get up to 165 Hz. It has variable refresh rate support, or VRR, to reduce screen tearing when gaming. It has native FreeSync support, and we confirm G-Sync works with NVIDIA graphics card. However, we experienced some issues with the VRR. But essentially, if you're going to game at 165 Hz, you shouldn't have any problems. Now let's move on to motion handling, and an important part of it is the response time. This is the time it takes for pixels to change from one color to the next, and a slow response time usually results in smearing with fast-moving objects. We measure the response times at its max refresh rate and at 60 Hz. When gaming at 165 Hz, the response time is good, but it's still not as good as other 165 Hz monitors, which is a bit disappointing. It's a bit slower in dark transitions, which could result in some motion artifacts. At 60 Hz, the response times are actually quicker by a few milliseconds, but there's more overshoot, so you can see visible ghosting behind fast-moving objects. Whether you're gaming at 165 Hz or 60 Hz, we recommend setting the overdrive setting to fastest because it results in the quickest response time, but at the cost of adding some overshoot. Let's look at the input lag now. This is the delay in time from when you input your action to when it appears on screen. Like most gaming monitors in 2021, the input lag is incredibly low, whether you're gaming at its max refresh rate or 60 Hz. Samsung Odyssey LC34G55T is essentially an ultra-wide version of the Samsung Odyssey G5 LC27G55T, but there are a few differences. The 34-inch model has a DisplayPort 1.4 input, while the 27-inch has a DisplayPort 1.2. This allows the 34-inch model to achieve higher refresh rate, and it has quicker response times. The 34-inch also has a higher contrast and better color accuracy, but these can vary between units. The Odyssey G5 and the Gigabyte G34 WQC are similar ultra-wide gaming monitors. They each have a 34-inch screen with 1440p resolution and a VA panel. With similar panel types, they each have high contrast ratio and narrow viewing angles. The Samsung has a higher 165Hz refresh rate compared to the 144Hz on the Gigabyte, but motion still looks smoother on the Gigabyte. Also, the Gigabyte is better for use in bright rooms because it gets much brighter. Lastly, the Gigabyte stand has height adjustment, which the Samsung doesn't have.